Before proceeding to the next question, I want to take a moment to show you a requirement that you're gonna see for sure for this exam. And this is, I already mentioned it before, but I just want to show you how this message would look like. They like to group questions for a specific scenario or a use case. They like to group them together. And once you have answered to a question, you don't have the possibility to go back and review that question. So please keep this in mind, because if you don't pay attention to this, you're going to lose points for questions for which you are not sure what the answer is, or for questions that you haven't replied. And the message looks like this. I'm not going to read it. You can pause the video and you can read it carefully. And in this way, you'll be prepared for the exam. All right. Then we can go to the next question, which is related to a recovery service vault. So imagine your company has two Azure subscriptions, A and B, and you create a recovery service vault in subscription A, so which is named Vault 1, and it's located in North Europe. And for this Vault 1, you configure actually this Vault 1 for Azure backup. Now you need to move this vault from subscription A to subscription B. And so these are the requirements. So you want to move it from subscription A to subscription B. So from North Europe to South Central US. And you want to minimize, so you want to make sure that you minimize downtime and data loss during the process. Now the question is, what PowerShell command would you run for this? Would you run set AZ resource, new AZ resource, export AZ resource group, or move AZ resource? Now, in my opinion, this is a tricky question, because lots of people, from my experience, they would say, okay, I'm going to export AZ resource group. Other people might think, okay, maybe move AZ resource is the correct answer, but this might be too easy. And actually the answer is move AZ resource, and let's say it's the easiest answer here. And why is that? So actually you should first run move AZ resource command, because Azure Recovery Service Vault is an Azure resource which is created in the resource group, as we have seen here, which is created in resource group 1. Otherwise you cannot create it. And you want to use move AZ resource commandlet to move this recovery service vault to a different subscription or to a different resource group in the same subscription. So that would be the same thing. For example, we had here another resource group, and you wanted to move this vault from RG1 to RG2, for example, you would have to use also move AZ resource. And actually this is the only command necessary to move the vault. You don't need any other command, set, new, or any other command. Another thing that's important to know is that both source and destination resource groups are locked during the move, and all data and backup policies are retained also during the move. Yes, let's see now why you shouldn't run export AZ resource group, because I think this is the most misleading one. So I have marked here the correct answer. Why export AZ resource group is not the correct one? Because this one is used to export the resource group to a template and then save the template. And actually this is often used when creating a new template based on an existing resource group. So this is not part of resource services vault move process. Please keep this in mind. Then you don't want to run new AZ resource commandlet, because it's not necessary manually to create a new resource when you move. Azure does it for you. Also, you don't want to run set AZ resource because this is used to configure properties for an existing resource. But you'll not be able to change the resource group or subscription for the resource. So I think this is also misleading. So please keep it in mind. I've seen that there are people that would say, okay, I'm going to set other properties for this resource. This is not the case. It will not allow you, as I mentioned, it will not allow you to update the resource group or subscription for this resource. And I think now that you know this, I think it's quite obvious why this is not possible. Because actually you need to move the recovery service vault with all its dependent resources and not just set a property to it. Now I would like to show you the documentation as well. You're going to find the link to it in the video description as usual. And I want to show you some affirmation I have made on this. So during a vault move across resource groups, both the source and target resource groups are locked, preventing the write and delete operations. Because of course, if you change something while the move, while the export is done, you might lose data, and Microsoft want to make sure that that this doesn't happen. Okay. And of course, you can read all the details. For example, the target subscription must reside in the same tenant as the source subscription, as its state must be enabled. Okay, you have other details regarding permission and so on. So you can read all of it together, all of it here. Now I will also link the documentation to move to AZ resource, export, AZ resource group, new AZ resource, and set AZ resource. And what you're going to need here to know is that the move AZ resource commandlet moves existing resources to a different resource group. And the fact that this resource group can be in a different subscription. Same for export AZ resource group. You'll have all the details here. For new AZ resource, you'll have the description down below, and you need to remember that this will create an Azure resource. For example, a website, they say Azure SQL database and so on, but not only. There are many more examples. And set AZ resource. Also, they let you know what you can specify to modify. For example, the name, the type, and so on. You have all a set of examples here, and you can go through them by yourself.